Well, hello, and welcome to Femme Noir. I'm Serena,
I'm Victoria.
and we are a podcast all about women in film.
For so long, the American film industry has placed a spotlight on the male experience, from prominently catering to male directors and writers to featuring, and never condemning, misogynistic themes and narratives. Women in film have always existed, and it's time to talk about them.
Join us here on Femme Noir podcast every 2 weeks as we discuss and review movies that are written by, directed by, or starring women.
So we haven't explained our segments in a hot minute. I was doing a really good job of that the first couple of episodes, explaining like how we were going to break things down. And we keep saying like, oh, we want new listeners and stuff like that. But then I realized or Serena pointed out that like they wouldn't know what we're even talking about. Like people that listen to it all the time are like, oh, we know the segments and stuff like that. But I should probably explain it every time. So I'm going to refresh a little bit the structure of the podcast. So we'll start by giving our first impressions of the film based on the trailer and our first watch of the movie. Then we'll go into breaking down the film and discuss notable scenes and things that worked well or worked against the themes of the film. Afterwards, we'll discuss when and how the film passes the Bechdel test. And we're going to try and link something if you're not familiar with the Bechdel test, because we've talked about it a little bit in our other podcasts. And so you can kind of look at the explanations that we've given and the things that we're looking for. In how we're judging that. And then finally, we'll give our final scores of the film. So 10 stars is a perfect movie, needing no improvements. 5 stars is a flawed movie, but it's still watchable. And then 1 star is like the worst fucking movie we've ever seen. Like if we were seeing it in a theater, we would have walked out. And so the fact that we paid $12, we're not staying.
I would have gone to sleep, gone to the bathroom for 20 minutes. And then if it's like 5 stars, I would like, it's kind of like maybe I would watch it if it was on, but it's not something that I would like want to watch again, like on purpose.
Exactly. And then we'll end with similar movies that we would recommend if you enjoyed this movie, and then some other films by the director. So that's what we try to do every episode. I have not explained it in a while, a couple episodes. So
of course, we've got some other segments that we sometimes throw in that are kind of fun, but those are going to be surprises from now on.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I didn't mention the fact that we do Fuck, Marry, Friend Zone. So every episode we also do a Fuck, Marry, Friend Zone, where we look at the male characters of the movie. Yeah, and we say, okay, which one are we gonna fuck? Which one are we gonna marry? One are we gonna friend zone? To kind of just like, I don't know. Guys always do that with girls, and they always are like, oh, this girl is so this and that, whatever. So we're kind of just like, turning the turntables a little bit.
Oh, the turntables.
Yeah.
Also, I just think it's so funny that whenever we do that and I post a segment of it on like TikTok or something, like there's always some dude that gets angry, and it makes my day. They're like, how dare you talk about men and about if you would date them or not. And I'm like, not so nice.
I know. I know. I'm like, okay, whatever. Like,
oh, so I see you've gotten the point.
And I think I mentioned this in the Promising Young Woman one, that someone got paid to like do a review of Promising Young Woman, and he was like, oh yeah, she wasn't like hot enough. Like I didn't believe that someone would rape her. Like she needed to be hotter because like whatever. And I was like, okay, you know what?
Me?
If guys get paid to write reviews like that and do stuff like that, I don't feel bad for doing this.
I don't feel bad at all.
So whatever. Yeah, I don't feel bad.
Mainly because like I'm not interested. Like neither of us are really interested in them anyway. So it's even funnier.
That's the joke, is that we're like, we actually don't care. And that's why a lot of episodes, sometimes we skip it, but
that is the joke. That's the joke, is that neither of us are straight and we don't really like men in general.
Yeah, so I'm not even pressed.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Okay, so the film that we are talking about today is the film Pieces of a Woman, 2020. I think it was released direct to Netflix, directed by Cornel Mondrusco. It follows the life of a woman who has a heartbreaking home birth, and it leaves her grappling with the profound emotional fallout, isolated from her partner and family by a chasm of grief. I got that synopsis off of a Letterboxd. And we watched it because it is nominated, I think, for is it Best Picture? Or I can't remember.
It's definitely at least Best Actress. But while you look that up, I will also like to point out that it's written by a woman, But I looked up right before this actually, just because I was like, oh, I wonder what other movies this director's done. And it turns out they're actually partners, like romantic partners. And so
No
they have
way!
consistently made movies together. And they haven't really made any like American movies. Like I think they've made a few, but they're not like famous for their American movies. So I thought it was pretty interesting. I just thought that would be cool to point out because I think both Vic and I, when we watched it, we pointed out like you can definitely tell it's written by a woman, but also the way that they directed was very non-male gazy, and we thought it was really interesting. So I was wondering what the dynamic between, because sometimes it's important, I guess, like the dynamic that the director and the writer have in order to make choices. Because sometimes there's writers that write things and they have a specific view in mind, and then the director will come in and they'll add things or they'll take things out because they don't agree with the writer. Um, and certain times you can tell that it's done in a way where it's like, oh, these two get along, they know what they've done. There's another movie that's really good, and eventually we will review it, Thelma and Louise, which was directed by Ridley Scott, but it was actually written by a woman. And it was cool because they actually had a very not romantic or like whatever relationship, but they got along really well, and Ridley Scott allowing choices to not necessarily be all of his. And so, like, when it came to the writing, he didn't change anything that was written already. He just directed it, which was kind of cool.
Mhm. It is only nominated for Best Actress.
She
I thought it was more.
killed it. Yeah, kind of should
Yeah, it was
be
good.
nominated for more. Like, this is gonna sound really dumb, but it also, like, we're gonna do recommendations later, but for some reason, like, this movie made me think of Call Me by Your Name. I don't know what it was, like,
What?
the coloring.
What?
No, just, like, visually, purely visually. I wanna say it had to do with, like, the color schemes of the movie and, like like, the color grading, literally the color grading of the movie, and then there was the whole thing with, like, they had this, like, floral kind of, like, theme throughout the movie that kinda picked up, and then, of course, they were obsessed with her hands and, like, her nail polish, which for some reason I think is something that, like, oh my goodness, I was listening to something earlier. It was like a review about this show called, I think it's called Generation, and how they thought it was really cool, like the different ways that like the different characters have their gaze mirrored in the cinematography of the show. And they were saying like, yeah, like for this one character, like he's obsessed with so and so's like hands, he's obsessed with his blah blah blah. And like and they also kind of dwelt into the thing where they're like, women tend to like look at like your smile or your eyes and like stuff like that. And then it was like, but like gay men like to look at each other's like hands. And I was like, that's really interesting. I don't know necessarily if that's true because I'm not a gay man. And I was like, because like that's definitely something I look at. Like when I look at like other people, like I'm always like, oh, look at their eyes, look at like how they smile or like mannerisms like that. And so I thought it was interesting that there are like certain characters have certain things that they focus on and other people that is mirrored through the cinematography. And so I thought that was interesting because that is something that you see in not only Call Me by Your Name, but in this movie. And I think because I've watched Call Me by Your Name so many times, I immediately was like, oh my gosh, they're focusing on her hands. Like I immediately was like, oh, I've seen this before and Call Me by Your Name.
I wanted to bring up because we were trying to just we were going through like Oscar noms and just trying to see which ones would maybe be like good to talk about or women centric. And this one was kind of interesting, so we were like, okay, let's watch this one. And then you actually said you were like you texted me like as when you started the movie and you were like, oh, Shia LaBeouf is in this. And I remembered when the FKA Twig shit went down, they took his name off of the Netflix credits. Yes. Um,
Yeah. Because I had no idea, and then I saw him, and I was like, "Is that who I think it is?" And I was like, "He's still making movies." I thought he was like not making movies.
and a lot of people like praised Netflix and they were like, "Oh yeah, like that's so good. Like I'm glad they're doing something about it." Da da da. I think they just did it because they wanted people to still watch the movie.
Yeah,
Like, they were kind of trying to
that's
trick
probably
people
why.
into still watching it. Yeah. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, that's stupid. I thought it was really stupid that they did that.
Yeah, it's like you probably should have their
Take the
name on
movie
it
down.
still
Yeah.
because, like,
Like, if you're real, take the movie down. Just like the fact that they just took the name off, I
yeah,
was like, they wanted
recut the
people that didn't
movie.
know because once people saw that his name was on there, they'd be like, I'm not gonna watch it.
We can give credit to Vanessa Kirby though, because she,
Served.
Lord Almighty, did she act her ass off in this movie?
Okay, so let's
Like,
talk about
wow.
like the movie itself. So first impressions
Yeah,
done. That we're done with that part. And now let's talk about the
yeah.
movie. So you texted me when you were watching that first sequence. There's a lot of long takes in this one. Like that first
Hmm.
sequence where she's literally giving birth. And you said it was really not sexualized. And that was really cool. That's
Yeah, it was
amazing.
really
Yeah.
interesting.
It's amazing how
Like,
low the bar is. That it's like, okay, making a
yeah,
pregnancy and birth not sexy. We're like, wow, that's cool.
there's like other movies and shows where it's like it's not necessarily sexualized, but it's definitely not like realistic or like the way that it's done is just kind of like, oh yeah, she's pregnant, and then like immediately she's just not pregnant anymore.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
just like, okay, that didn't make any sense.
No, that's true.
Like she's just like, oh my god, I'm pregnant, and then she like has the baby, and like the whole time they never like they don't ever show like the fact that pregnancy is like painful. Like half the time they'll be like, oh, I'm having contractions, ow, 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 and it's like, is that really what it's like? Maybe for some women, but like most women are doing like the, yeah, like let me try and breathe, and they're screaming fuck, and they're like, oh my god, this hurts. Right, kind of a thing. So I thought it was really interesting to see like a full on birth scene, but then even when they're doing that, they're like, the man can't be in here, like the guy like passes out or something, or like it's a shot from like in between her legs looking up at people,
Yeah, yeah,
which I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
know why
Yeah, that's a
we
thing.
need that shot. That's
Yeah.
not necessary, but I guess that was like the only way they could think of, which is still inherently sexual because everyone knows they're just looking at her vagina.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and like,
It's the scope of what
I
is
don't
it?
like the way that that's shot, and it's just, it's weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was
Not this
definitely
movie.
shot
That is other
way
stuff.
better in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like they didn't show anything, they just showed like oh, like she was in the bath, like she still had her clothes on, like there wasn't any, like it wasn't I'm gonna say it wasn't uncomfortable, like to be in the space with her. Like if I was physically there, I'd be like, yeah, like she's pregnant, this is normal. Um, but it was interesting because I thought going into this movie that it was gonna be hard to watch because I was like told by multiple people that it's a hard watch and that it's like, like and so like when someone tells me something's a hard watch, I'm thinking like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, like, oh, the
Oh,
girl's
that
being
was hard.
brutalized, and it's like, like hard to watch because so and so, like the woman or the character is being like beat up, and it's just like a lot of stuff like that. Like I didn't think they meant hard to watch because we watch her give birth.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then I was like, oh, and so like the whole time I kept waiting for something like bad, like physically, like some type of like wife beating type thing, or
Well,
like
that did kind of happen as well.
it did kind of happen,
Yeah.
yeah. And like there was the scene where get he's trying to like get on top of her to have sex with her, and she literally keeps pushing her off.
Yeah.
But I literally kept waiting to see like like close up shots of like how they'll do like the close up shots of like him grabbing her breast or like
Yeah.
his hand up her pants or whatever. Like I kept waiting to see that like in close ups, and then like it didn't happen, and I was like, this was not as hard to watch, which is stupid because like it shouldn't be easy to watch anyone being harassed or like at all, but it was way easier to watch this because it wasn't from the toxic gaze of like how it normally is that we're so used to,
Right.
which is messed up.
Yeah. And it's interesting because we mentioned this before too, but the director, right, and the cinematographer were all men, and so that was something that we could
Hmm.
entertain the idea of. Was like, we say things like male gaze and such things, and like whatever toxic masculinity and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But yeah, it's really the individual that can like, what is it, subscribe to those sorts of behaviors or not.
Hmm.
Because it was really like I guess I see where it mirrors maybe Call Me by Your Name, because definitely in Call Me by Your Name there's a lot of distance. Like you feel very distant from the characters. You don't feel
Yeah.
involved. You feel like
Yeah,
very
yeah.
apart.
You're
And I feel
watching
like,
it happen.
yeah, and I feel like in this movie too you feel very apart. They don't let you get close. That was a good
Yeah. You just watch
observation.
her do her thing.
Yes. Oh my god, my thing fell out and then your voice came. Hopefully my mic didn't pick that up. Um but yeah, it was like and also with the long takes. That was something very Call Me by Your Name as well. There's a lot of long takes, and then
Yeah.
you watch as a viewer from the distance, like the relationship unfold and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So I think, yeah, I even read a review that said something about that. That's like, you don't necessarily get to be in her shoes, but you get to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really well said. Because yeah, you do go through the movie, you aren't necessarily like, you can't comprehend what it's like to feel that, but you can understand what she's going through the movie. And I think they did it in a really like beautiful way.
Mm-hmm.
Because it did feel very much like her story. It didn't feel like I didn't feel like Shia LaBeouf's character was making her like overshadowing her and
Mm-hmm.
her story and everything. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because obviously like he had his struggles or whatever with it, like his character, and like the mom had her struggles with it, and like the rest of the family had their kind of way of dealing with this like horrible thing. But it's very much her story, and so I thought it was really cool because you see it go through like the whole movie of this theme of like her and the way that she deals with this
Mm-hmm.
throughout the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really like, I honestly really liked it. I thought it was really like, I would watch it again. I really would.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I as well watched it after the whole Shia LaBeouf news broke, and I was like, okay, great. And it didn't really help that he was not a cute husband in this movie. He was really mean and bad. Yeah, there's a scene where he like fucking her
He's a
up
butt.
and like he cheats on her and this and that. So that definitely was not cute and did not feel good. I do feel bad. I feel bad letting his presence like overshadow the existence of all the other minds that went into creating the work. Um, because yeah, I was impressed. I'm normally
It's
not
a
into
pretty
that
good
kind of
movie.
stuff. Yeah, it's a pretty damn good movie, and I'm not really into that kind of stuff usually. Like
Yeah.
things that are serious, things that are dramatic, that are very realistic. This movie was really good. I really liked it, and again,
Hmm.
I agree with you. I would also watch it again.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Because it was like, not only was it really well written,
Hmm.
like the dialogue was really cool. Except this is my only thing with it, was when she's giving her speech in the courthouse at the end. It did feel a bit cheesy. She was like, "My daughter didn't come into this world for this. She came in for this other thing," and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Like that part was a little bit cheesy, but everything else was like amazing. Like there was the dinner scene, and I would compare this one to Black Bear because I felt
Mhm.
like this dinner scene was what Black Bear was trying to do and completely failed.
Yeah, when they
Because
go to the
this
mom's
dinner
house.
scene,
Yeah.
yeah, at the mom's
Yes,
house,
you're so right. You're
when
right.
there's so much like silence,
You're right.
there's this awkward conversation,
Yeah.
but then the way that the camera moves and follows the different characters, again, it's a longer take, but it follows different characters and it follows their eye line. And
Mm.
so you get to see, like, okay, I'm looking at this person, and then it's like you can see that this person is not looking back, or this person's avoiding eye contact. And then it switches to another person, and then it like follows their feet on the ground and pans up. Oh, they're in a different room. Oh, I see. They're right outside the room, and they just keep walking through instead of participating in the conversation. It was so well done. Like
Mhm.
I have never oh my goodness.
Mhm.
That scene will live in my mind forever.
No, I agree.
It
That
was
was a
so
really
good.
impressionable scene. Yeah, it was. Yeah, and the dialogue. Yeah, it was really nice there. They were very naturalistic actors. It was a really
Because
interesting scene.
they did a similar thing. Ari Aster actually does this a lot in his films, in both Hereditary and Midsummer. He uses like mirrors. And so they did something similar in this movie where there was this like in that sequence. I want to say Vanessa Kirby's character is like, she's looking down, like playing with like the trinkets, but there's like a hall mirror or something like that, and you can see her sister like walking up behind her, and she like glances at her sister's reflection in the mirror, and there's like the tension created in that, and I just thought, oh my goodness, that was so genius. Like, what a way to use the space and like the camera movement and like the lack of camera movement. It was so good.
Yeah.
So good. But then the dialogue like helped it out even more, because it was like, if there wasn't any dialogue, but there was the whole time, it was like an awkward dinner party. There's her brother-in-law, Kirby, well, yeah, Vanessa Kirby's character's brother-in-law. What is her character's name?
I can't check because I'm using my phone to record. Let me Google it.
I know, I can't either.
It's going to be a lot of clicking. Ignore that. So her name is Martha.
Martha.
And her brother is...
like brother-in-law. Because it's her sister's husband, right? Which is Eliza Schlesinger.
The only
Eliza
other guy...
Schlesinger.
Yes, Anita. The only other guy listed in the credits is Jimmy Fails as Max. I can't remember if that's him.
I want to say Max is the husband of Eliza Schlesinger's character.
Okay. Who
I was shocked to see was in this movie, because I was like, she's a comedian. I've seen so many of her stand-ups on Netflix. And I was like, she acts too? That's cool.
She can do everything. You're doing amazing.
But yeah, so he's sitting there and he's talking to Shia LaBeouf's character, and they're just having this stupid conversation, trying not to talk about the thing that everyone wants to talk about. It's like elephant in the room, awkward party conversation. And he goes, and he sits down and he goes, yeah, so I've been checking out the church. And I don't know, I actually audibly laughed at this, because I was like, wow, that's something someone would say in real life, and it played out so well in the scene, because he sits down and he goes, so I've been going to this church, and there's something with the guy, and then he's like, what's the guy called? And he's like, oh, it's the pastor. Yeah, the pastor, the guy. And he goes, the guy said, and he's like, and this is something I will always remember, it really stuck with me. And he goes, time heals all wounds.
Fuck that. I hate that. It's too real.
And everyone kind of like, everyone in the room stops for a second, and they're like, this is really what he had to say right now, because no one had anything to say.
So dumb.
And it was so funny. And then he's like, thanks for that. And I was like,
drop some wisdom on you. Definitely have not heard that before.
In real life. Like, oh my goodness, that was so funny to me. And I was like, wow, yeah, that's some realism for you.
Okay, so now we're going to discuss. This movie does pass the Bechdel test. So I guess just like where and then how.
Pretty soon.
Yeah.
Right?
Because
she's talking to her mom. At the car dealership when they're buying the car from her brother.
Well, in the first scene when she's giving birth, she talks to the person.
Oh yeah, the midwife.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. There's a lot of girls in this one.
That's true.
There's a lot.
I don't remember where that comes.
Well,
no, that's after the car dealership, because they buy the car.
No,
right?
What? In the first scene.
The car.
Isn't that's the first scene in the movie where she gives birth?
No.
What?
The first scene is Shia LaBeouf comes on character because he's at work, and then he goes and they.
Oh yeah.
And then both of them go to buy a car because they're like, we need a car, because we're having a kid. Oh my gosh, this is going to be so much fun. And then after that is when they go home, and then everything goes down.
They go to the car dealership? Why don't I remember?
Yeah, because they're buying the car from the brother. And she's talking to the mom, because the mom is the one that is helping them with the payments for the car so that they can get this car. And they're talking about like, yeah, we're gonna need a new car because the car that we have isn't like good for children or whatever. He's like, my daughter's gonna have the safest blah blah blah. And they're talking about like how they're
what the hell? I was like, the pregnancy is the first scene in the movie.
It's a long scene. It's like 23 minutes, I believe, that the birth scene.
It was like,
and it just sticks with you. Like, it's so good.
Yeah, honestly, the fact that I just checked earlier for the husband-in-law, and there's only 2 men listed in the main cast. It's just Shia LaBeouf. Oh, Jimmy Fails is Max, and then Benny Safdie is Chris, and then everyone else that's listed is a woman. That's pretty cool.
Oh, I lied. Ben Safdie is the brother / husband.
No, he was the car dealership guy.
That's the brother. They're the same person. That's why
What?
it was like a family thing. They were like, oh, thanks, man, for getting us this car. That's why he goes to him in the end. He's like, hey, I need to give you back the car. And that's why he helps him out because they're
I thought
related.
he was just being weird.
No.
Okay, I didn't understand this movie. When men come on screen, I just space out. Okay, never mind.
Because I remember seeing Ben Safdie. Can we talk about the cast for a second?
Okay.
Yeah, who the heck is Max?
He's gonna be on the FMF. There's like 2 more.
He has to be. There's only 3.
Yeah.
Who the heck is Max?
I don't know. Well, okay, say what you're gonna say first, and I'll figure it out in a second.
This cast, why did they go so hard? They went so hard with this cast, bro. I was like, all right, we got Vanessa Kirby, which she did amazing. You've got the mom, who also did amazing. Should have been nominated as well. You've got Eliza Schlesinger, which I was kind of shocked because of like I've never seen her act, but I know her so much from her comedy and stand-up and stuff, like on Instagram and her like sketch shows and stuff. And so I was like, what the heck, she's in this movie? And then I was like, and her husband's Ben Safdie, like the guy, that guy, seriously? I was like, no way. Like Uncut Gems Safdie brothers, like Ben Safdie.
That's so funny.
I was like, Good Time, Ben Safdie? No. Wow. Okay.
He's
cool.
employed.
Like, why? Why'd they go so hard? They didn't need to go that hard. They did. I was pleasantly surprised.
Okay, yeah. So honestly, I feel like it did a pretty good job in terms of, I don't know, lots of girls, and the girls talk about things.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, and then because it's written by a woman, they also added in a lot of like female perspective. Like they included the part where another bathroom scene, woman pee, y'all. We do in fact go to the restroom. I just find it funny every time a movie puts that in there, you know. So she goes to the bathroom at work, and is Max the one black guy in the movie? The guy that was in her desk?
He has a name? Let me look it up.
So it's not Max. Anyway, she goes and she sees that guy that's sitting in her desk. You didn't get it from one black guy? Are you not looking at like their pictures too?
What happened? What?
You're just looking at the credits?
Well, on Wikipedia, his name is linked, but his Wikipedia page doesn't have a picture.
Oh, his picture doesn't show up. Yeah. I was like, he's the only person of color in the whole movie. But she ends up like, she's like, okay, well, and she like walks out or whatever, and then she like goes to the bathroom, and they show that she has to wear like, because like women that are pregnant, like it's very common to like tear down there, like, and what? Then you are also like really sore because you just pushed a baby through your freaking vagina. But it's like also possible to like tear your vagina during pregnancy, oftentimes they have to wear like certain pads and like packs to like soothe your vagina because it's just so sore. And she had one in her underwear that they showed in the scene because she like drops her pants, but it's just from the outside of the stall, and it shows her feet and like her pants like bundled up, and there's like a little aloe pad there. Which I was like, what an interesting thing to include.
Oh, that's random.
I was like, yeah, that like really sucks because they do this thing like after she loses the baby where they show like she still has to go through all of the postpartum stuff. She just doesn't have the physical child. And so she goes through like the depression, she goes through the lactating. They have that scene where she's looking at the small kid and she's like, wow, I'm so mad that I don't have a kid. And she's like literally crying, just looking at this random child in the mall. And then she starts lactating. Mm-hmm. And I was like, of course you have to include those in the story because like when you give birth, you have not only like an emotional connection to this child, but your body physically changes through this whole thing. And so why wouldn't you include that in a story about a woman that not only loses this child, but is also now physically and mentally having to deal with like this whole situation, like the pregnancy, the postpartum, like all of it. And so it just makes sense to like include that in a story. And that's just something I guess like is very prevalent in the writing because I've seen stories where they like talk about like, oh, we lost the baby, and it's just like she's just like, oh, back at a coffee shop with her best friend like talking, yeah, I lost the baby, and like is written by a man, and she's like, yeah, I just really wanted to have something that was mine, and you're like, of course you would think that as a man. Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't know, there are a lot of like details like that. They're very specific just to like the female perspective that you could feel like coming out of this movie.
That's interesting that you picked up on those. I never would have even noticed.
Because there's also the relationship with her mom, which is cool because it's the first female she talks to is her mom. And I want to say the last one she talks to, maybe.
It says that you turned off your camera. Okay.
The last woman that she talks to, maybe. Sorry, I got a notification.
You're good.
Low power mode or whatever.
Oh.
But it's something that like carries out throughout the movie, which I thought was interesting, was how her mother, and this was also just a work of genius as far as like the writing goes as well, because her mother's constantly like asking her like, oh, are you okay? Like her mother, because this is kind of like a subplot, but her mother's going through like beginning stages of dementia, I believe, where she's slowly starting to forget things. Like the sister comes to her house and is like, you need to like be more present because like mom's going through some crap right now and like you're not here. And she's like, okay, well, I'm also going through my crap, so I don't necessarily want to like answer the phone all 7 billion times that mom's calling me, because like I'm grieving the fact that I lost a child and then I still have to go to the physical aspects of postpartum. And she's like, okay, well, mom called you because she literally almost burnt the house down because she forgot that she had turned on the stove and like went to go do something else and almost burned the house down. And then you see it later on when she's like at the end of the film when they're out for dinner and she's like, oh, I didn't order that. And they're like, mom, you ordered that. Like you ordered that salad, it's yours.
Yeah.
Which is why I think the speech a little bit after the dinner scene, when Martha is telling her, she's like, you're ashamed that I didn't like that the baby died. Like you're ashamed that I couldn't do this, blah, blah, blah. You're blaming me for it. And it's one of those scenes where it's like, you know, for a fact that the mother isn't thinking this, but that it's something that the character herself is projecting onto her mother and hasn't dealt with yet.
Yeah.
And I thought that the way that they like did that, because then her mother, she goes and she says, I remember exactly what it was like for my mother when I was a kid. And she tells her the whole story. And she's like, because I didn't raise you to not stand up for yourself and to not deal with things. Like you have to deal with this somehow. And it sounds a little harsh at first, but then it really does like snap in her and like in Martha's character's like mind right then. And the acting again, amazing, because you can see it in her eyes. She's like, ding, 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 that's it. And then in the courtroom, when she finally gives the speech, it's not really a great speech, but it's the fact that she gives it that's so like powerful. And so, yeah, I just thought it was like really cool because you have this relationship with her mother, which are often not exactly written that well. And you've got these details that make these characters really like fleshed out of like how they interact with each other. You have the sister that's like, okay, I'm here, but I'm also not here, and I can't really be here all the time, but like I still love both of you, kind of a thing. And then you have the mom who's like, I'm having trouble with my memory, but I can tell you for a fact that the important things I still remember. Like I'm still your mother, I still know you, and I'm still here for you, kind of a thing, which I thought was a really strong narrative, because oftentimes you get stories about, like, even the way they pitch those movies, like, oh, this woman has to go through all of this by herself. And you watch the movie and you're like, except she actually doesn't. She's got multiple women in her life that help her out, which is wonderful.
Yeah. I have like nothing to add. You like say everything's so good. I'm like, you know what? That's true. And you know what? That's it. Period.
Dang, actually, I know we already have 3 recommendations, but there's another one actually that I remembered that I had thought about when I was watching the film. So I'll add this one to my recommendations.
Okay.
But let's play FMF first.
Okay. So we have Shia LaBeouf and Sean Carson. Let's okay, anyway, hold on. Shia LaBeouf and Sean Carson. Benny Safdie as Chris. I was gonna say that. Damn it, you beat me
I
to
know
a
we said
joke.
we didn't want to kill people, but
Girl, I was gonna make that joke. You literally stole it. Oh my god.
we're the
I
same
was gonna
person,
make that
Victoria. Our minds.
joke. Wow. Okay, anyway, I won't be pressed. Okay, so Shia LaBeouf as Sean Carson, Benny Safdie as Chris, and then Jimmy Fails as Max, who I didn't even know was a character until now.
I know, we were like, who the heck is this guy? I forgot he was there until I was like, oh yeah, he was the one non-white person in the movie.
I think I would marry him. Oh wait, we're not doing marry.
I know.
Fuck, friend zone, and then murder. Okay. So yeah, so murder
Shia, obviously.
Yeah. And then
I friend zone Max, and then I'd screw Safdie.
Me too. I
He's
would
cute.
friend zone Max. Yeah. Oh, Safdie too. I guess so.
Probably in real life, if I was into that, but.
You're like, I can get into it, Benny. What's that?
I'm just, yeah, if I had to, I wouldn't have that, you know.
Wow. This segment is honestly just good so I can know what your type is. Because honestly, you're like, I don't have a type. I'm not into that, whatever. But then you like, there's certain people that you're like,
there's certain people
I would try it.
I would try.
Serena's ready to risk it all for this random person. Okay, what comes after this? Are we gonna rate the movie now? I already forgot. We're the host. I can't remember. We're rating the movie.
Rating the movie?
Yes.
Rating it. Okay, like I would suggest people watch this. Like I actually really like this movie, and I would watch it again. I'd probably give it like an 8 out of 10, to be honest. Like I thought it was beautiful.
Wow, that's really high.
Well done. The acting was great. Just skip over the scenes with Shia in it. They're really not even that important, to be honest. Which is why it gets docked. And her speech at the end was kind of dumb. Like it could have been better for how good the rest of the movie was. It just
you
felt
wanted a sad ending?
No. Like her speech was just kind of like I was expecting like a good speech, and it was just kind of like
I didn't think it was
basic.
bad.
Like I've heard that speech before.
Well, I didn't think it was bad.
You know, it felt like everyone else's speech.
I thought it was an okay speech.
It also just seemed a little weird because it's like, why would you give a speech in a courtroom? Like, she could have done
because that was like the last chance
logistically any other way. Like, she could have been like, okay, no, I just want to talk to like the jury, or like she could have literally, because like the reason she gave the speech was like, yeah, please don't like make this woman go to jail because like my mother decided to sue her, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Which like, yeah, it was like interesting, but then I guess she had like other cases, and she was just like one of the cases, and she was like, for me, no, it wasn't. Like she could have just had that one-on-one with the lady, you know?
Well, I guess to me it makes sense because of the things that they were dealing with. Like when she was having that conversation with her mom, it was about like shame, and it was about that kind of stuff. So if it was personal, if it was private, she wouldn't have had a character arc. But she kind of comes through in the fact that she's like, you know what, I don't care who's. She just says it in front of everybody.
Like who hears it? Yeah.
Yeah, and so I feel like that kind of made sense, at least maybe.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah. And even like the way that they market it, they say it's like a courtroom drama, but it's not a courtroom drama.
Wow, yeah, not at all. Is that what they say? You should have said in the beginning.
Like I looked up the movie and they're like, it's a courtroom drama, and I was like, it's not a courtroom drama. They're barely in court.
Wow.
And then like the scene that they show on Netflix, like of the like in the banner before the movie, like if you click on the movie, is her in the courtroom.
No.
And so I thought there was going to be a lot more like courtroom scenes, and I was like, this is literally such a subplot to this movie.
I didn't even know it was marketed like that. You should have said in the beginning. What the heck? Oh my god.
I just remembered that they did that. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I didn't even know that they did that. I didn't see any trailers or anything. I only knew it because of the Oscars.
Yeah, I only knew it because of the Oscars.
And
I think I'd seen stuff about it on Instagram because I follow them on Instagram, but I hadn't seen like scenes or anything. I just saw like pieces of a woman comes out. Like, you know how people have like the headlines of articles and they like screenshot and post it on Instagram? That's all I saw.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And like the poster of like the, what's it called? The movie poster?
Yeah.
Digital poster, because
yeah.
whatever. It's fine.
Because real life doesn't exist anymore.
Unfortunate.
I would give it like a 7. It was definitely better than, like I would recommend it. I thought it was a great watch.
Yeah.
But wasn't perfect, I guess.
Yeah, and it's not something that you
I'm hard to please. Yeah. I would have been like, I'll wait for it to not be in the theaters. I'll wait for it to be on the internet. And luckily
because this is something like I just watch movies. Like I will literally be like, I'm bored. Let me just literally just kind of play Russian roulette with Netflix and just whatever ends up playing plays. So like I will just sit through a movie and be like, I have no idea what it is. Sure, let's go for it. That's why I probably like have so many recommendations for this movie, is because like I didn't mean to really watch any of these movies. It just kind of did.
So what are your recommendations?
So first off, I would recommend Mother of George, which I actually had to watch for an anthropology class. And it's pretty interesting. I would say like it's definitely the kind of like slice of life, talking about like shame and like cultural, just things like within like culture and society that kind of like surround women and childbirth. But it's not as, I guess, like triggering as Pieces of a Woman would be, because Pieces of a Woman's definitely like, I would not recommend anybody watch this without knowing that she loses the baby first. Like go into it knowing that, because it can be extremely triggering for someone that's like lost a kid or anything similar to that, where it's just like really sensitive to things like that. Mother of George is different because it's about the Yoruba, which is a Nigerian. So it's a Nigerian American film, and it talks about not only the Nigerian American like experience, but also just like the ideas of womanhood and motherhood and marriage, and just like how their culture translate in America and vice versa. I also thought that Beyond the Lights, which is a Gina Prince by the Wood movie, would be a good one if you liked this movie. You would probably like Beyond the Lights a lot. We're definitely going to watch it at some point and review it, because it's amazing in my opinion. I think it's great. You end up watching at least one scene for school if you go to film school. Like you will probably end up watching something, or it's been mentioned in like a textbook or something. Like it comes across. It's really good. Definitely another like slice of life. This one talks a little bit more about like mental health and like depression and growing up under like a lot of pressure, but it's also got a very interesting like mother-daughter relationship, which is why I would recommend it. 20th Century Woman is another one I would recommend, because that one also kind of surrounds these ideas of like women and their interaction, and it's pretty cool. It's got Annette Bening, it's got Greta Gerwig, and then it also kind of surrounds these ideas of like womanhood, motherhood, relationships, being like single, divorced, having children versus not having children, etc. And then finally, the last movie, and this one is just kind of like it's fun for me. I want to see if anyone watches it and what they think about it, to be honest. If you do watch this movie, please comment and let me know, or like if you've seen it, because I don't know if I like this movie, but I definitely want people to watch it because I want to talk about it with other people, you know? It's called Life Itself with not Pedro Pascal. Right?
Wow.
Pedro Pascal. It's got Olivia Wilde and Oscar Isaac in it. And Antonio Banderas. Fun fact. I'm not going to say anything about it. I just want you to watch it. I think it's interesting.
Wow,
the only reason I would recommend it is because it talks about like life, and so like life and death and like the struggles of that. But I want you to watch it, please, for me. Watch the movie, please. Or like talk to me about it, because I don't know if I like it, but I definitely like think about it so often. Like it just comes up in my memory, like in my mind, and then sometimes it's relevant, and I don't know. It's interesting to say the least. So yeah, that's what I got for you today.
I think I have one. The reason I would recommend this one is simply because of not necessarily the subject of the content matter, but the way that they deal with something that, well, in this movie that I'm going to recommend, it's a lot more intense subject matter than a miscarriage. So the movie is called Joy. It came out in 2018. The director is Surabe Mortezai. And it deals with sex trafficking in the United Kingdom. A woman who comes from I can't remember the country, and like it's like a whole like sub business, and it's non-documentary, but it feels real in the same way that this movie it feels very realistic. They try to get you to feel like this is just lifted from real life, almost as a documentary. And I feel like in this movie, Pieces of a Woman, it was kind of I don't want to say unsatisfying, but there are a lot of subplots that don't get happy endings. I think that her standing in front of the courtroom and saying like it's okay, like I forgive her and stuff like that, that was really the only thing that resembled a resolution. She like, you know, her husband leaves and like all this stuff happens, and her mother gets dementia, and everything ends very it doesn't make you feel good.
Yeah, it's just life.
Yeah, and that movie I feel like is kind of the same. It doesn't really give you a resolution. I mean, the movie ends and you feel like, okay, this story is over, but it's not something where it's like, oh, and everyone lived happily ever after. And so if those sorts of things, like, you know, a sort of drama, but it's very like slow, lots of long takes, it's very realistic, and then that sort of ending, then you would enjoy the movie Joy 2018, not the Jennifer Lawrence one. There's another movie called Joy, and it does not have her in it, so it's not that one if that's what you're thinking. Yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, I guess that's all we have for you today. Thanks for listening or watching, however you're consuming this content, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you're on YouTube. I'm just kidding. No, but seriously, you could help us out. That'd be great. Comment, subscribe, like it, share it with your friends. Follow us on Instagram. We're on TikTok. Anyway, bye guys.
Bye.